All right.
We are live here from Christenberry Fieldhouse in Augusta, Georgia, getting set to begin our first game of our second tripleheader in as many days. And our first game of today's tripleheader here in the Augusta/USC Aiken tournament here this weekend. It'll feature the Lady Indians of Catawba against the University of West Alabama. Here in this one, West Alabama will stick around throughout the day and also play in the tournament finale at 5 o'clock tonight against the host Augusta Jaguars. The Jaguars also playing at 2:30 this afternoon against Carson Newman, as they'll play back-to-back games to wrap up what has been an exciting tournament. I'm Robert Ambrose, joined alongside by Blake Collins. And Blake, yesterday we had 3 matches just like we will today. They were all incredible. So many of the sets within the matches came right down to the wire. We're tied at 25, forcing someone to have to win by at least 2. And I think we'll see that in the matches here today again.
This first matchup is going to be really intriguing. The Carson Newman and Barton match went down to the wire and was a very, very pull and tug type of game. Like, Barton would capitalize on points, then Carson Newman at the second game yesterday came back and punched right back and acquired more points. So hopefully we will see more back and forth affairs. I know that for me they're always fun to watch. When it's more competitive like that, you always get into it a little bit more. And with these two teams right now, Catawba, which has faced Augusta here last night, coming off that loss, and then you also have as well a freshly minted West Alabama team who trekked over here from Aiken last night, faced off or went toe-to-toe with the Pacers. So they're getting 2 of the premier teams in this tournament in 2 straight days. A West Alabama team is, and that fortification should help them in this contest and build up their chemistry and build up their gameplay for the rest of the way through.
It absolutely should. Catawba wore their road blue yesterday. They're in their home whites today. West Alabama in the road red. We are tied at 1 here to start this one. And interestingly enough, Barton College, who won each of the first 2 sets yesterday, or each of the first 2 matches, they only dropped the first set of the second match, otherwise dominated for the most part in their 2 times yesterday. They're overall 3-10, I believe, this season. They really love this arena.
Absolutely, and there you see Catawba being a little bit aggressive on the front court, trying to float one over past the front court of West Alabama. And being aggressive paid off for them in the second set of yesterday's affair with Barton. Keeping to that game plan is paying off, but then right now you also have West Alabama catching back up and deadlocking this score at 2.
And a little confusion on the West Alabama side as they tried to hit it up, but it lands in the middle of several diving players.
Yeah, when you have 3 converging players like that and the ball falling right in the middle, you also kind of get a little bit worried about who's going to get the volleyball, and that little ounce of undecisiveness there hurt West Alabama.
That's a point for the Tigers of West Alabama. They lead at 4-3. The Jaguars in attendance, watching this one, getting ready for their doubleheader beginning at 2:30, having a pregame breakfast with the family. It is family weekend here at AU. And a lot of the players' families are also in attendance. And you gotta love family weekend, Blake.
Absolutely, man. Bringing the family together, adding that little bit extra camaraderie, and it also brings the team closer together, along with great food that they have before the game, and they will definitely utilize that as Augusta is playing in back-to-back affairs here on the Chris and Mary court, closing out today and then playing in the second game as well.
And neither team is allowing the ball to land on the ground, and both teams doing a good job of keeping it in the air. And it's 6-4 right now in favor of the Tigers.
The heart from the defensive setters in the backcourt was tremendous there. The willingness to lose your base, go in for the heartfelt dive to save that play. You gotta love the effort on the part of Catawba, but it just did not pan out for him.
And a timeout taken with West Alabama leading it 7-4 here, Blake. And Catawba, they played twice yesterday. They were swept in both matches here at the Chris. They were swept in the first game of the day by Barton and in the final game of the day by AU. And that's basically how the schedule is going to work today for West Alabama. They play here in the first game and they play AU in the final game later on. It's the same idea.
Absolutely, and outside of Lander, who over at Aiken, from looking at the schedule correctly, who is playing over in USC Aiken, West Alabama has the toughest tournament schedule. As we mentioned a little bit earlier, they wrapped up the day yesterday going toe-to-toe with USC Aiken, and then they close out the night tonight clashing with Augusta University here on their home court. So they have got one of the toughest schedules outside of Lander, who faces Queens later on tonight. Also, Barton, who played Barton earlier in the day. And those are their only two matchups, but Lord have mercy. You want to talk about some stiff competition. West Alabama's faced it.
They do lead at 8-4, however. And it's now 8-5, and like you said, Blake, they played in the Aiken part of this tournament yesterday.
He has some good dig outs to give phenomenal height on the ball for West Alabama to give them time to set underneath the dig and place a powerful attack on Catawba. Catawba could not react on defense and thus could not secure the point, as that point fell into the grasp of West Alabama.
9-5 in favor of the Tigers. They get across. Does that land? Yes, it lands out of bounds, so that's a point for the Lady Indians. It's 9-6. West Alabama has a very small roster, only 10 players on it, compared to a much bigger roster that Catawba has. So Catawba has the depth as well as the height advantage up front as well.
That they definitely do, and that's something that we haven't seen them utilize that predominantly here in the first game today, is that front court that not only, as you say, with the height advantage, but has pretty good power behind their kills, and their blocking ability is good as well. And that's something that if they would like to take, set number 1 and much less match number 1 here today, then look for them to stabilize the front court and utilize them in more of an attack format here in match number 1.
9-8, so that's 4 straight points by the Indians. It was 9-4. And does that land out of bounds? It does. Another point for the Indians. And Blake, we are tied at 9.
The intensity on that from once the transitional set was committed to the powerhouse behind that kill was absolutely phenomenal. And then not only that, but then the pinpoint accuracy to go with that dig to place it right in front of the libero. It's a pretty doggone good play from Catawba.
Tigers retake the lead 10-9. The Tigers, they like to go all over the place in recruiting. They only have 1 player from the state of Alabama on it. They have players from Hawaii, Florida, and South Carolina, and even as far as Carson City, Nevada, just outside of Reno.
Well, a lot of times, too, that's a pretty good job of recruiting when you can get players from other areas like that, spread your roster out in a situation like that. It shows you that the coach has a very good way of recruiting players, and not only that, but has a good eye for talent.
Absolutely. Talent is not all homegrown, and that's a message that we all have there, if you know what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So 12-10, Indians on quite the run now, and a timeout taken by the Tigers to try to stop the bleeding and figure out how to reverse the current run that the Lady Indians are on.
And let's not put it. Let's take that a step further, because not only as a head coach, you coach up these ladies and make them not only the best volleyball player that you can, but the best person you can coming out of it. But you also, going into it, a coach kind of sells the program to the prospective incoming player or incoming freshman, and the way that the West Alabama head coach has put this and has allowed his players to buy in to get that type of roster from different areas is absolutely outstanding. And you know, they're still right in the thick of things.
And off the timeout, it'll be served for the Lady Indians. And they have 3 up guarding the net. Speaking of their height advantage we talked about earlier. That was a battle that was won by the Jaguars in their matchup yesterday.
And another thing from the front court of West Alabama, seeing as the height is a little to the edge of Catawba here, one of the things that they can use and utilize very well is scouting before they set up the play, so that way they can open up the areas to be able to sneak the ball through their blocking ability and sneak it past them to accurately place the ball behind the front court, that way that they want to garner points. And as we've been talking about all tournament long as well, mixing up your attack with not only kills but floatovers as well. So those are 2 elements that West Alabama could utilize to subdue that front court attack from Catawba.
And right now it's 14-11 Catawba. We had a good turnout of students last night for the Jaguars match Friday night after classes ended, and with today being a Saturday, no classes in session, perhaps we'll get some students out here again, support their team today. 14-12 Indians. Set one of match one of our second triple header in 2 days on this beautiful Saturday in the CSRA.
2 great digs to save the point on both sides of the court.
And it's 14-13, 1 point game here. So it'll be Rebecca Johnson serving for West Alabama. She's a redshirt junior from Naples, Florida, transfer from Central Florida. And that lands for a point for Catawba, so it's 15-13.
The net had a lot to do with the trajectory of that volleyball. The dig and the dive was stationed right to where she would have full body control to dig it out on the far side defensive setter position, coming over to dig that out. Just the net had other things in mind with kind of slowing that ball and deflecting it in a little bit of a higher angle down to where she could not get that dig set underneath the volleyball.
15-14. This is becoming a little back and forth here. In addition to the 3 games here today, we also have 3 going on across the border in Aiken to wrap up the tournament. As we have Lander taking on Barton, who won twice here yesterday. And actually we have 4 games in Aiken on this beautiful day. And USC Aiken about to take on Queens in about 45 minutes from now in the second game of the quadruple header over at the Convocation Center in Aiken, South Carolina. And Queens will stick around and take on Peach Belt Conference rival Lander at 4:30 over in Aiken, and then the host Pacers will take on Barton College to close out the tournament over there. Will be a 7 o'clock start time. What a great tournament. I mean, it's always a great tournament when you have games in several venues. Being able to combine it and come together for such a great event.
Not only that, but it's the way the tournaments are set up. It provides better competition for teams to see where they're at, see what improvements they need to make, see what strategic elements they can implement to overcome different types of scenarios that you see on a volleyball court. And not only that, but the most important thing to these is what you can get outside of it as well, like the chemistry building aspect of it.
Absolutely.
The camaraderie, the leadership. You can start to see it kind of venture out of the group and see it form in different players to where those players can lead the team. And as we talked about yesterday, sometimes too, when players start to talk in huddles and lead other players, what they're saying tends to resonate a little bit more than it does from a head coach. And that's not to say that the head coach does a phenomenal job, but sometimes hearing it from a teammate or a friend going through the same thing you're going through, it resonates just a tad bit more, and you start to play with more heart, more focus, and things like that come out of these types of scenarios. So it's a great tournament all the way around in several different aspects. And for these teams, this is going to be a couple of 2 days, yesterday and today, that they can tremendously build off of going forward.
Having good leadership within the team helps enhance team chemistry, which helps basically gives you a little advantage on the court. That never hurts to have. And you mentioned this yesterday, Blake, how the Jaguars head coach Sharon Quarles, she lets the players be their own coaches, and that allows for a leader to step up and enhance the team chemistry.
In times where she thinks that it serves them better to do that, she will definitely allow the leaders on the Jaguars team to step up and help out with the coaching ability, because as tight-knit as the team is, there's also four or five seniors as well that are tremendously close in terms of hanging outside of the team and just being around each other, and that also helps with not only with, okay, say for Mackenzie Beck to step up and lead, but you also have Natalia Govea that can do the same thing. Blair Bolton has that opportunity as well.
Oh, yeah.
And several different leaders on the team can step up and help grow the team, not only as seniors, but also for the sophomores and juniors and incoming freshmen that the team has. And that's not to say that only works for Augusta. That works for them, but it also can work for any team on the volleyball court as well. Say West Alabama, say at Catawba, especially with the senior middle hitter that we saw yesterday have such a huge impact for Catawba. And in that retrospect, those leaders come and they make a huge impact on how the season will play out for those respective teams.
Absolutely, and that's an important cycle of team chemistry as well. Off the timeout, it's 20-18 Tigers, and they get another point, so it's now 21-18. I'll send the Lady Indians on the attack. They get it across. And point for the Tigers, 22-18. That's going to be hit hard, and it just lands in bounds.
Great.
Point for Catawba.
It's phenomenal precision there by Catawba on that kill with perfect placement right in front of the baseline.
And we saw there that Tigers had several players gathered around each other, and when they're close to each other, it's easy for them to set things up in the way of hitting the ball to one another and set up a kill, and it worked to perfection.
Absolutely. You saw Catawba focusing on protecting more of the middle court there, and it opened up the far corners of the volleyball court for West Alabama, and they exploited it very well by a kill that went straight into the near side back corner with phenomenal accuracy, and that secured the West Alabama last point for them.
23-20. Tigers on top. Lady Indians will serve it. And what a beautiful serve. Hitting it into the perfect spot. Wasn't exactly a hard hit ball, but it was just the perfect velocity and angle to go to the ground where there was no Tiger players.
That's a good strategic point by Catawba, though, surveying the defense and knowing where they're playing and knowing that some of the players were back on their heels, and then adjusting the power and also the velocity as well on that particular serve to deaden it right before the Tiger defensive setter could even think about getting a dig set under it.
24-21, it's the Tigers serve. Now the Tigers go back on the attack, and the battle of the net is won by the Tigers, and the first set will go to West Albany. When we come back, we'll preview set 2 here on the Augusta University Athletics Network on YouTube. We'll be back. Welcome back here to Christenberry Fieldhouse. It's set 2 of match 1 of today's triple header. Set 1 went to the West Alabama Tigers, and look forward to seeing what set 2 will bring us, and we'll see what adjustments that Catawba is able to make. The teams have switched sides here for set 2. Robert Ambrose with Blake Collins, and it was a good first set, Blake, and went back and forth, and Catawba ultimately pulled away and took the win. Or correction, West Alabama pulled away and took set 1 over Catawba. And what does Catawba have to do differently here in set 2? They were 0-6 in their sets in their 2 matches yesterday. And what do you think they have to do differently here in set 2?
Well, for one, implement different ways to utilize their front court. They have the advantage up front with the height and with the power in their attacking game from the front court, but it hasn't been utilized to its max effectiveness yet. And you'd like to see from Catawba's standpoint to utilize that front court as a major asset in this second set. And not only that, but for the defensive setters to be on their heels to back up anything that falls in between the front court and also the middle and back court, and be on their toes to be able to dig things out and keep plays plays alive so that you can come back and you can attack and you can get back into more of an offensive mindset.
Yeah, it's the combination of offense and defense.
Yeah, absolutely.
You emphasized that yesterday as well.
Absolutely, and it's also too, we talked about too, being in a state on defense where you can also have it to where when you're on defense, have an offensive mindset as a defender, seeing what the other team is doing and seeing what they're presenting you, and then adjust and formulate different types of game plans and set up different attack strategies off of what they're giving you. But that's also very much scouting and read abilities into what the other team is set up defensively for you to attack.
Speaking of 2 attacks, we are tied at 2 here in set 2.
And then on the West Alabama front, I'd like to see them implement a little bit more footwork, because their approach in the front court has been better as the first set has gone along, and it's continuing to get that way. And then not only that, but their rotations are pretty solid as well, coming in and helping out where there are gaps in their defense.
And we're now tied at 3 as the Indians get another point here. The Indians put themselves in a position where the Tigers put themselves in a position where they might have several players up who could potentially go up and hit it when they have the ball in the air.
Absolutely, and they definitely have the, as we've been talking about, the height advantage and the angles potentially to defeat the front court of West Alabama. But then West Alabama goes and tricks out the front court of Catawba like they did right there with a little float over that the front court and the back court were not expecting whatsoever, and they were caught off guard and on the backs of their heels, and then trying to regroup and come back and dig that out to no avail. So a good offensive strategic strategy right there, realizing what was going on and implementing a float over to capture the Tigers' 5th point.
The Tigers begin their attack already with the 3 tallest players up on the net. There's a service error, so it's a point for West Alabama, 6-4 in favor of the Tigers. And another point for the Tigers at 7-4. It's a good crowd turnout for an early game. This game began at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And mentioned this yesterday, admission is free here at Christenberry Fieldhouse. Parking is free. It's a outstanding facility here in Augusta. Why not come check it out? You got nothing to lose on this Saturday. It's 8-4 Tigers here in set 2. Tigers took the first set. They will take on Augusta University later on tonight at 5 o'clock. It'll also be Augusta's second game of the day as they play at 2:30. It's part of a doubleheader.
And that's going to be fascinating to watch as well, because
Yes.
with, you know, as we've seen Augusta all year long, they're hawkish when it comes to eyeing the ball. They're fierce in the front court. They have a blocking scheme that is really utilized very effectively in almost a brick wall type format in the event that they are as close knit to each other as they can possibly get, leaving little separation to squeeze the ball through. And not only that, but their backcourt with Holland Martin, Natalia Govea, and Garmos in there as well is absolutely electric in backing up what comes behind the front court. So in all facets of the game, Augusta is on fire. It is going to be a tremendous, difficult task for the two teams that they will be going toe-to-toe against.
9-6 Tigers.
You see a two-pronged surge there by the West Alabama Tigers, deking out the defense a little bit of Catawba. Not sure which one had the kill in mind, but they went with the near side attack on the kill, and a very fruitful outlook for the Tigers. And let's see if it pans out later on, and if they go back and utilize that same look.
We have a whistle and substitutions here. 10-7 Tigers. It will be Indians' turn to serve. And the battle of the net is won by Catawba. They had 3 up on the net, and they get it by the Tigers and trim the deficit to 10-8.
Well, Kimberly Hurtado had missed a step going for a kill, and confusion on that, and then one of the front court women dug that out, sent it back over to West Alabama. Then Hurtado absolutely comes through in a big way after that misplay with a huge block to set up Catawba for their 9th.
Tied at 10 now. On the attack go the Tigers. Now they have to retreat back in the defense, but they get it across and get the point.
That's where critical scouting comes into play, because the defensive setter knew that she had a lane that if she absolutely charged on a rocket there, she could get it through. And that also was a phenomenal assist by the libero to set that up, a pristine setup and a good transition into that kill. Worked wonderfully for the Tigers on that last possession.
Now 11-10 Tigers. Substitution here. They're going to bring Allie Grubb into the game, and Kimberly Hurtado will take a seat.
And one thing that has really helped out West Alabama in this set, not necessarily there on this point, but on previous points, is their base. They've got good footwork, but when they have to dig out balls, they make sure that their base is firmly planted and are in a good position to make beautiful digs like you just saw there to save points and create better angles on an offensive attack.
And that was a beautiful floating kill by the Tigers, and I believe that's going to be credited to Alex Welling, senior from Memphis, tied at 12. He was able to float it over the tall defenders into the perfect spot. And the perfect velocity on that serve gives the Tigers another point. And you see the Tigers retreat back to offense when they had 3 up on the net, and the rotation works to perfection there, Blake. They get another point. It's 14-12. They were ready for defense, and when they had to adjust and move to offense, they were able to do it, make it look easy, like it's no problem at all.
When you're on your toes in an attack-ready position, you can adjust to anything. And that right there was a prime example. They were ready, they were hot, and then when they had the chance to strike, they did. And then on defense for Catawba, they had a little bit of a miscommunication with hand placement, and they couldn't recover.
Whistle and a timeout taken. 15-12. Tigers on top, trying to take a 2-0 lead. And the Lady Indians trying to even this match at a set apiece. The Lady Indians were swept twice yesterday. Trying to avoid being swept again here. And if they don't win this set here, set 2, there's going to be a good chance of that happening again.
Absolutely, because not only are you seeing better footwork by the Tigers, you're also seeing a team that has more court awareness and can see plays play out better and strategize to work with that, and at times strategize one step ahead of Catawba, and you're seeing that is conducive to a 3-point advantage right now for the Tigers.
Yeah, absolutely. They've had the edge most of this set, although the Lady Indians have stayed close. They did for the first set as well, and the Tigers were able to pull away and close them out. They take a 1-0 lead. Lead at 15-12 here in set 2. They have the serve. It's a loud, energetic crowd here this morning. And a very hard cross-court attempted kill, but it goes way out of bounds.
That was an interesting alignment there by Catawba. They lined up 3 on the right and then 3 in the back. And then like you see in football with a wide receiver in motion, the outside hitter comes right around to the far side to try to exact a kill on the Tigers. It did not work, but it was an interesting alignment that they may try to utilize again, and we'll see if it pans out for them. But what if you're the Tigers and seeing that just puts another play in your mind that you have to try to combat, and if you're Catawba and utilize that again, you're hoping that kind of confuses the defense a little bit enough to where you can exact some accuracy and pinpoint a hole and garner the point off of it.
16-15, Tigers still have the lead. They're going to begin the serve with 3 up. The Lady Indians begin the serve with already 3 up on the net. Now they have to rotate back onto their offense. And you see the Tigers just have beautiful passing and rotation. Like, they're not afraid to show, like, any different kind of formation.
Well, not only that, but, and a lot of that has to do with some of the digs that they're getting. Their base is solid, their form is solid, and they're getting height on these digs to where it allows other players, whether it be defensive setters or outside hitters or middle hitters, to come up, set up underneath that dig, and there's that positioning you're talking about to isolate different points on the Catawba side. And when they see them kill those particular points on the Catawba side, and it's very instrumental in why they have a 1-point advantage to this point.
Catawba on the attack. That's way up in the air. And the Tigers get it across and get the point.
Point in case right there. Even when the libero didn't have her base as much under as she wanted to, she got enough under that dig to pass it over to set up another dig that was high to where the defensive setter could come up and act like an outside hitter and put a serious charge into a kill to isolate, penetrate, and then capitalize on that particular open area of the court to tack on the Tigers' 18th point.
Yeah, and they were in the perfect position for that as well, as the Lady Indians showed they were very aggressive on an attempted kill, but they had the perfect position and court awareness of where their teammates are to get it to the right player for the kill.
Right, absolutely.
On the attack,
Absolutely.
the counterattack. They are up 19-17. And that's a service error. Point for the Indians, 19-18.
And that's another thing from the Tigers, too. They haven't shown very many mental errors, much less physical errors. It's been a pretty clean matchup so far for them. And they continue at this pace. It's going to be extremely difficult in set 3 for Catawba to catch back up. And, I mean, they're only down by 2 in set 2. They can easily come back and wrap up this second set with a deadlocked all set at 1 apiece. But they've got some serious work to do down by 3 in the second set right now.
Yes, they do. They're down 3. The Tigers are 4 points away from taking a 2-0 lead, and that's not the position that Lady Indians want to be in after being swept twice yesterday. And then they'll become in dire need to win set 3 if they don't win this one.
And right now you see a timeout taken. Catawba's wanting to talk about it and just get their players settled down, cinched into a game plan. And the thing for Catawba right now, not only on defense but on offense, is execution. And then being able to not only get that execution when it comes in their territory, but also to cinch up the defense, to be able to attack the ball on defense, to set up their offense for a run that they would need to trigger to much less tie the game or even think about capturing the second set with them down by 3 and the Tigers only 3 points away from taking this second set.
Well, good execution can result in good things. There's no question about that, Blake. And they're down 22-18 right now. The Tigers inching closer to a 2-0 lead. And here are the Jaguars. The Jaguars have been watching this game right from the start, enjoying their pregame brunch with their families here on Family Weekend. What would you take from what you've seen from the from the Tigers, who you have to play later today?
it's honestly something that the Jags have done really well. But you can always improve in every aspect of the game at any given moment, and that is some of their footwork and some of their ability to maneuver players around and be able to help out other players on the team. That, let's say, if a float over goes behind the front court, the defensive setter comes up in a ready position and saves that point. Things like that Augusta does pretty well. You can always improve on things like that, and that's something that, you know, they can take in with them, especially because it's going to be an interesting matchup when Augusta and West Alabama square off here in the final game of the tournament later on tonight.
Yes, it will be, and we'll see how the Jaguars respond to the way West Alabama does their rotations. And the positioning that they're in. Right now they caught the Lady Indians off guard. There was confusion between the Lady Indians players on who was going to go after that ball, and it lands in between them. And the Tigers get a point, and they get another point, and they take set 2, and they have a 2-0 lead over the Catawba Indians here at Kristen Berry Fieldhouse. We'll take a quick break, and we'll come back, preview set 3 here on the Augusta University Athletics Network on YouTube. Stay tuned. Welcome you back here to the Chris. It's 2-0. The lead in favor of the Tigers over the Lady Indians. As we're set to start set 3, it's a closeout set for the Tigers, and the Lady Indians trying to avoid being swept for the third time in 2 days here, Blake.
Yeah, they've fallen a little bit on hard times, but again, a thing that we've touched on a lot with them is their front court and having their front court prevail on a lot of attack schemes, and their blocking ability was phenomenal yesterday, especially in the first game. You'd like to see them in Catawba get back to that to be able to be a factor and be a force in this third set, because if the Tigers take this set, that is it for them for the tournament. In terms of Catawba playing another game, or another matchup, rather, in the tournament.
Tigers right away take the lead on a service error. And ball hit right to Will Doss at the scores table. 2-0 Tigers. On a beautiful serve, catching Catawba off guard.
Good form on the dig, going to the knees to dig that ball out for West Alabama.
And they dive for that one, and it's going to land on the ground, so Lady Indians get their first point of the third set.
And on touches like that, you really don't need much power behind it. Just a soft touch with enough height to get it over, and then in the trajectory of the fall falls behind the front court and in between the libero and defensive setters, and you've got yourself a game plan, and you can tack on points behind it.
(3-1) Tigers. And that's a service error. That's a point for the Indians. That was Madison Cooler attempting to serve it, and she does a similar thing to what Natalia Govea does on the Jaguars, throws it really high up in the air and hits it really hard. And we'll see that later today when the Jaguars begin action.
Think about it, though. If you're a fan of volleyball and haven't really stepped on a volleyball court, or just watching this for the first time, look at how high that net is. The near side ref is on a stepper that is 4 rungs high to stand on top of the net. Imagine the height that if you're standing on the ground with some of these serves, that you have to get the ball over to serve it over. And that's a lot of it as well, to get height, to get power, and to get speed behind some of these serves.
And what a very brave dive by Madison Cooler, but she just came up short and did a little somersault. Lucky she's okay after that one. 4-3, Tigers on top.
Yeah, the last thing you want to see in a tournament like this, in a situation like this, is an injury that cost a team, and not only that, but the player some time.
The floor isn't exactly soft here at Christenberry Fieldhouse. It's a hardwood floor that's also used for basketball during the winter. 5-4 Tigers. And Catawba struggling with that one, a little confusion, and looked like two players were hitting that one at the same time.
Two players were hitting it at the same time, but you gotta give them props on the heart that they showed right there, the willingness to try to keep that dig alive, with the dig venturing to the side of where they wanted to dig it up. You saw at least 2 or 3 touches on the dig to try to save that. It was just not enough, and Catawba loses a tiebreaker right there to West Alabama.
It's been back and forth, but West Alabama just refusing to fall behind as they just continue to retake the lead whenever it's tied, and now they lead it 7-5.
And that right there was an effect of good communication by the defensive setter and the libero, which they actually rotate to the front court now. The libero doesn't, but the defensive setter who was communicating with them was. And when you have good communication like that and good reads like that, a lot of good things will happen.
Absolutely will. Good things come from good communication. 7-6 the score now.
And you look at that, the Lady Indians score a point off of a really good dig out from West Alabama. Just an infraction by West Alabama cost them the opportunity to keep Catawba at 5, and Catawba is now up at 6. But just when Catawba responds, the Tigers fire back.
Yes, they do. Once again, like I said, they refuse to give up their lead. They lead it 8-6. And that's been the story of this match altogether. Oh, beautiful kill. They had 3 players on the net. And that was both Jamie Lancelot and Madison Cooler regarding that. It's hard to tell which one spiked it down. But nonetheless, that's a point for the Tigers.
Well, it's now, too, Catawba is working a formation and working a play to protect the corners, at least in the setup, and it's looking like they're doing the same thing during the actual play, but it's leaving the middle of the court exposed. And when you have a bigger gap like that to attack, even in a defensive stand, it throws you off kilter, and the more space you have to cover up in a defensive type of area, the less likely you will be able to get to that in time with as fast as volleyball is, and that's what hurt Catawba on that last play.
West Alabama goes on the attack, and a very hard hit ball, and it becomes just as hard for the Indians to hit it back as they were diving for it, and it's hard to hit it in the right position to get it back over the net. So that's a point for the Tigers. That's 5 in a row for them. They lead at 11-6. So the Jaguars, after this match, will play back-to-back games to wrap up the day, the 2:30 game and the 5 o'clock. And West Alabama will have a little bit of a break before they take on the Jaguars at the 5 o'clock game. Who has the advantage in that regard?
You would normally think the team that has a little bit of a break in between, but with as close to complete as the Jaguars are, and as much fire as they have in their bellies, and as much tenacity as they've been displaying the whole year round and the whole season, you kind of put that in the Jaguars' hands at this point, because with their type of play, with as fast paced and concise as they are and visceral as they are on the offensive side, it'll be in favor of the Jaguars. We'll have to wait and see. West Alabama is displaying right now a good team that is very in sync with one another, so it should be a phenomenal contest. But seeing what we've seen thus far this season, you have to give a slight edge, at least in my book, to the Jags. But as we're seeing right now, West Alabama is going to give them some serious competition.
They absolutely will. And Another reason for that is West Alabama is overcoming the height disadvantage facing Catawba because of their movements and rotation and positioning on both offense and defense.
Right.
Augusta will have the height advantage against them, similarly to what Catawba has with the good front court. But will the Tigers be able to overcome it in the same way against Catawba?
Oh, yeah. Do what they're doing now, but incorporate a little bit better footwork, a little bit better front court footwork that will open up different aspects to their attack game. And not only that, but if you can actually confuse the front court of the Jags, which has not really been done, if you can do that for West Alabama, they have a darn good shot at capturing a set, maybe two, if not the matchup.
Absolutely.
So they've got some things working for them, but at the same time, with like what we've seen from the Jags, it is going to take a complete and total team effort with as little mistakes as you can possibly make on that volleyball court to pull that off.
Well, the Jaguars do not make many mistakes. And
no, they don't.
The beauty of the team chemistry they have, and that's been together for over a year now.
Well, and if they do, they have the wherewithal to cover those mistakes up very quickly, so you can't capitalize on them if they show them to you.
Absolutely not. Service error, so that's a point right off of the timeout for the Indians. If you're the Tigers, that's not how you want to come right out of a timeout. It was hard hit, but it was hit a little low. And Blakey mentioned how tall the net is, and sometimes it can just be really hard to hit it over there. And now a service error by the Indians, and the Tigers get a point. So
now we're back to square one. Put those two plays out of your mind with the service errors. Get back to the fundamentals. Focus on your play and focus more also on accuracy, like you just saw there from Catawba, with a little bit of a more directionally angled kill to where they can deaden it right in front of the near side defensive setter of the Tigers.
Tigers go straight on the attack, and they just barely tap it over. And the net battle there is won by the Indians, 16-11.
You had the libero for the Tigers camping out in the middle to front court, covering up that aspect, and then you also had the defensive setter there covering the middle to far side, but nobody really was able to readjust their weight and cover the middle to the near side in the backcourt, and that's where Catawba attacked.
16-12. Beautiful hitting the ball back and forth on that, and somehow it avoids touching the ground, and a spike credited to the Indians.
If you see an effort like that, like West Alabama did with their defensive setter like that, and a little bit off kilter, why not go back there a second time? And that's exactly what they did there with a more lethal kill when the defensive setter didn't even have her bearings about her to do anything to even remotely try to garner the dig out. And just a complete all-around good play from Catawba, and they scouted that really well, and they come away with their 13th point.
Yeah, and it's amazing how they're able to get down and get the dig on that one as well.
Mm-hmm. But when you go, when you're off kilter like that, it is extremely hard for you to come
absolutely.
right back without even getting your bearings and even have a shot at another dig with good form. And that's where Catawba outsmarted the Tigers right there, in a sense of capitalizing when the Fires were hot on an opportunity like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Tigers still up 16-13, trying to close out this match, pursuing the sweep. And they floated over, and oh, what a beautiful float over. The 3 players up on the net for Catawba, and West Alabama being in perfect position in the court awareness we talked about. They float it right over them. They get a point.
That's knowing the height and having pristine accuracy on what you're trying to do with a float over. You couldn't have asked for a better height and a better trajectory on a float over to nip it right behind the Catawba front court, and it worked to perfection.
And that one lands out of bounds. So that's an Indians point, 17-14. And that one lands also out of bounds, so back-to-back service errors. It's 18-14. The Indians, if they want to rally, it's going to start now if they want to try to avoid being swept and force the 4th set. They get a point. It's 18-15.
When you crowd the midcourt to the front court, it leaves the backcourt extremely vulnerable, and even off a dig, the Tigers couldn't recover in time because you had a lot of real estate to cover and no one back there to back you up.
And the Indians get another point, so they cut it to 2, and it's 18-16. They're still right in this, but they've got a lot of work to do to avoid the sweep.
And it seems like right now, too, Catawba's playing pressure-free volleyball. In a situation like they're in, yeah, they don't have much to lose, but you don't want to just go quietly in the 3rd set. So you would think they would be playing with a little bit more pep and a little bit more pressure on them to make sure that they take this 3rd set. But it's actually a refreshing thing to see that they're more comfortable, more focused when they're not playing pressure-free volleyball, and it's showing because, yeah, the Tigers may have just collected on 2 points, but Catawba can easily come back and tie this thing up. And not only that, but garner the 3rd set without many mental mistakes or forcing an issue to where they would make an error. So it's just refreshing to see them kind of playing pressure-free in a situation that they're in right now.
And that spike caught the Lady Indians off guard as they didn't know what hit them when the ball was hit hard their direction. 22-16, 4 points in a row for the Tigers. And we almost see that again, but this time the Lady Indians dig it up, get it back across.
Yeah, number 8 for Catawba's came up huge 2 distinctly different times in that play to save the point for Catawba. She was instrumental in that play, keeping it alive, but ultimately the Tigers are too much right now.
And they're 2 points away from sweeping this set. there, and I'll take time out to talk about how they can close this out, and if you're the Indians, how you can avoid being swept. And it's a pretty tough hill to climb for them right now.
It is. A lot of it has to do with footwork and rotational work for them, though. If they can rotate flawlessly and move up and back to cover up the openings on their side of the court on defense, then they'll be in good shape and continue the blocking ability that we've seen to start to kind of come back a little bit here in the third set, and continue on the attack front with the front court, and you'll be in business. Now for the Tigers, it's just continue doing what you're doing and keep up with that footwork, because it is paying off tremendously for you.
Right on the attack go the Indians, but the Tigers were ready for it, but they have trouble handling the ball, and the Indians get the point. And the kill goes to Tigers, and it's match point, 24-17.
Right there, you can put up a good block all day long, one of the best blocks you've ever put up, but if the attacker attacks and it hits anywhere to the side of your body or to the side of the hand where you're blocking, it'll take a deflected bounce off to the side, and that's what happened right there for Catawba.
Absolutely, and the Tigers sweep the match 3-0. That wraps up the first match of our triple header here today, the second triple header in as many days. Coming up next, the Jaguars will play host to Carson Newman, and that'll begin at around 2:30 Eastern time, and then the Jaguars will play again at 5 Eastern against this same West Alabama Tiger team, and those should both be we got some good games ahead today, Blake.
Yeah, Carson Newman really showed a lot of tenacity and a lot of mettle through their game here through their matchup here yesterday in the second affair of the day, and it's going to be a tough sled for them and a tough slope, but come in with the game plan that they had yesterday with a little bit more front court work and a little bit more footwork, and it'll be a heck of a matchup. And really impressed with kind of what we saw glimpses of with Catawba's front court presence. I mean, they have a dominant front court presence, but they didn't get a chance to utilize it as much as you would have liked to have seen. That was a huge asset for them coming in, and it ultimately kind of failed to come to light other than a couple of points here today when it showed up a lot yesterday. And that's something for them to utilize and implement further to become a more well-endowed all-around team. And for the Tigers, they've got phenomenal footwork, and their ability, like the Jags, to cover one another when there's openings and when one falls down is impeccable, and that helped them tremendously throughout. And a good game plan by their coach coming in was just too much for Catawba. It'll be a heck of a matchup between these Tigers and the Jags to close out the night later on.
Absolutely will be. We look forward to bringing all of the action to you here on the Augusta University Athletics Network on YouTube. Once again, the final score here in match one of our triple header. The West Alabama Tigers sweep the Catawba Indians 3-0. Stay tuned, everybody, as we will bring you the second match of our triple header at 2:30 Eastern time between the Augusta Jaguars and Carson Newman. Once again, for Blake Collins, I'm Robert Ambrose. This is a special presentation of the Augusta University Athletics Network on YouTube. Stay tuned, everybody.